A lot of people fondly remember Rise of the Triad on DOS. I can see why. It was a bloody FPS in which you had infinite ammo with your primary weapons, but could literally blow your enemies apart with a variety of explosive secondary weapons. Split missiles, homing rockets, firebombs. It was pretty amazing to see back in 1995. What shocked me more is that the game was developed on an upgraded version of the Wolfenstein 3D engine, and what they did here was impressive. Elevation, multiple playable characters, deadly traps, the aforementioned gore, breakable glass, yet the game just doesn't click with me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I didn't play it when I was young and I have no nostalgia for it. I tried many times to give it a go and it just didn't hook me in. It's not a bad game, in fact, far from it. I just didn't personally have any fun with it. Fast forward almost 10 years to 2013 and Rise of the Triad was released. The remake, that is. I got it because it looked like a very interesting take on the original game. They kept everything featured there and rebuilt it for modern times. How does it fare? Well, the story of the game is pretty identical to the original DOS game. Your party of 5 that has nothing to do with the 90s TV show was scouting out an enemy fortress. This opposition realizes you are there, blow up your boat, and now you have to infiltrate the castle and take down the terrorists. That's about it. The game takes place in episodes like DOS shooters of old, but they're all linear, with your character moving to the next stage via a map. Humorously, there's a mission briefing button, and if you click it, your boss acts confused and asks why you need a briefing, and tells you just to blow everything up. Don't have to tell me twice. Just like the original, you have 5 characters to choose from, and each has different speed and strength stats. Personally, I went with Ian Paul Freely, because his initials are IP Freely and I am totally immature. Was it the right choice? It's debatable, but I'm sticking with it. Gameplay-wise, Rise of the Triad is your standard arcade-style first-person shooter. Combat is fast, your enemies will rush you with guns, and you simply blast them in the face. Your pistol, and later submachine gun, have infinite ammo, with no reloading necessary, so you'll probably be using those the most. But of course, you'll be looking out for those secondary weapons. Rocket launchers of different abilities, the firebomb that carpets the ground in Inferno, a shotgun that flings the Nazis, terrorists, to the walls, ripping them apart. They're still here. The more unique weapons, such as the God Hand, which gives you invulnerability and seeking instant death spheres, but gives you boredom since there's now no challenge making your character yawn, are all present as well. And yes, the power-ups and power-downs, such as the shroom that makes you feel like you're on acid, and the dog mode which turns you into a feisty puppy, are here too. Enemies will attempt to steal any secondary weapon that you are carrying to use it against you. Just slay them and you'll be able to pick it back up. You can also get trapped in a net, requiring you to use a knife to slice it open. I've only had this happen once, but it was frustrating as I didn't even know I had a melee option. Speaking of frustrating, Rise of the Triad is not an easy game to get into. Enemies will snipe you across rooms, and unless you have a rocket launcher, they take quite a few rounds to take down. You never really seem to get enough health power-ups when you need them, and traps are aplenty, often ripping apart chunks of your life meter. Plus, there are jumping puzzles, and we all know how I feel about those. As in, I hate them. In fact, there is a spot in the second episode called Bouncy House, where you have to navigate multiple jump paths to get to the other side of the room. I stopped here. Not because I hate the puzzles, but because the second area of this room has a pit that causes instant death if you fall into it, which you probably will. Secondly, the boss battle that I did run into was an exercise in patience, of which I have little in my semi-older age. He fires rockets at you while flames bellow out from the walls and random spikes impale you from the grated floor. There are also multiple phases, and I've gotten killed in between phases because why the hell not? I did get through it, but not until about 20 minutes of repeated checkpoint loads. Some weapons are also much more useful than others. Any of the rocket launchers are beneficial, but you always run the chance of blowing yourself up. The shotgun's only downfall is the pumping animation that you get every few shots. The firebomb is great against swarms, but otherwise functions just like an assault rifle if you use the secondary option. Also, the firebomb doesn't ignite your enemies if the shot goes past them, so you have to aim it at the ground a few feet in front of where they are standing. I should note that there are plenty of collectibles to locate in the form of coins and onks. They are just there for points, which, again, I couldn't give two craps about. In the original game, you collected them to earn extra lives, which I feel could have been used again here to good effect. But as it stands now, they are just there to bump up the score and completion rating. I feel if anything, grabbing so many coins could have been used to increase your health, or maybe use it in a shop for extra stat boosts, higher weapon ammunition reserves, or so on. The collectibles were a wasted opportunity, in my worthless opinion. And that kind of sums up the game. I feel like, as a whole, it's just a wasted opportunity. I really wanted to like it, but it just wasn't vibing with me. The gunplay was fun when I actually had a secondary weapon that was worth something, but I found myself primarily using the SMG and used the rockets for hordes. The traps always made me cringe, as they are all over the place. Jumping puzzles made me cringe even harder. With this and sometimes cryptic areas, I just didn't want to keep playing, and I had to take breaks after every level or two to avoid boredom. And this is a shame. I really wanted to like the game. It doesn't take itself seriously, which I think more games could learn from. It's literally just find your way through the level, explode every human enemy possible, and watch the blood fly. But it just lacks something, and I can't put my finger on what that it is. Before I wrap this review up, let me just say that the graphics and sound are pretty fantastic. Yeah, there are a lot of darker colors, but you're fighting in a fortress, so what do you expect? The gore is fun to behold and is almost cartoony, especially when enemies' eyes are splattered to your screen from the force of the blasts. The music rocks and helps attempt to motivate you through the levels. It's just too bad that the music couldn't rock me harder into playing it all the way through. I don't foresee myself ever completing Rise of the Triad, whether it be the original DOS game or the remake. I can't really explain why. It's just one of those games that you play, you have a bit of fun for an hour or so, but then shelf it and forget about it for the next 10 years. I will admit that your mileage may vary. If you are into arcade-style shooters, you may enjoy this more than I did. It's not a great game, but it's also far from bad. Final score? 4 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.